Hello, hi guys. Welcome to another edition of the Trading Titans video podcast. Today, the best laid plans. I'm going to talk to you basically about things that ultimately don't always go to plan, right? So we're going to look at a couple of trades, and hopefully you can grasp and learn a little bit more from this actual podcast. Now, today's quote: "There is nothing in the world so admired as a man who knows how to bear unhappiness with courage." Seneca. Now, as you guys would have gathered by now, for those of you who've been following me, I am a fan of Stoic quotes because I'm a Stoic myself, okay? And for those of you who don't know what Stoicism is, you should actually take a look at Google. I think that will be kind of handy rather than me go through a whole lecture on Stoicism. But I think it's an awesome way to live one's life, and obviously I try and impart whatever I can from a Stoic perspective, right? It has immensely helped my psychology in trading over the years, and it has made me into the trader and person that I am. So I will continue to admire Stoics. There are some great Stoics, from Ray Dalio to in the investment world, to people not in the investment world as well, who are huge fans of Stoicism. In any case, moving on, the importance of this quote reflects on two things: courage, and in effect also the fact that we must have humility, right? And so that's the thing, that's one of the most important things. So again, it's really important that there are times when things are not going to go to plan, and we're going to feel unhappy about things not going to plan, right? We're going to want to do a trade, we're going to want to execute an idea that has always worked and it hasn't worked this time around, and we're going to feel unhappy. At that point, we have to have the courage to, one, acknowledge that, well, shit happens, right? It doesn't always go to plan. Secondly, we have to have the courage to continue and persevere and not give up. There are so many people who give up. Now, I have a military background, and giving up for me is like a no-no, right? Giving up is just one of the things that I find the hardest to do. I would robustly and rigidly stick to things because I think it's an important sort of traits to develop. It's like a virtue. So I personally always try and stick to things, even if I think that they break for a little while. I just try and figure out another way around it. Nothing is impossible. There is nothing impossible. I can assure you of this. There is absolutely nothing impossible. I have seen people do feats that you just fucking death defying, you know, and it's just one of those things that show you everything is impossible. It's possible, and it's in the mind. So for me, taking that in, I kind of have a lot of courage to persevere. So I think that as traders, that's a very important thing for you to have, is to be brave, right? Go out there, do it, make it happen, right? If someone tells you that you can't turn, I mean, and by all means, I'm not like being suggestive here, right? So guys, please don't walk away with this thinking something else, right? But the bottom line is, if someone said to you that you can't turn £5,000 or £10,000 into £1 million, right? No timelines here. They're just saying you can't do it, trading the markets or anything else. Tell them, you know what? Piss right off. I fucking can. Right, that's the attitude you gotta have. Like, you might not be able to do it, but I fucking can, and wish me good luck because I'm gonna give it a damn good shot. Now, if you don't have that attitude, I guarantee you, it is one of those things that you are not going to succeed in trading. Just have it at the back of your mind. Nothing is impossible, but with that attitude, you're not going to succeed. So attitude plays a major role, more than any other work of life or any other engagement or any other vice, if you like to call it that. You need to have a lot of this. You need to have a lot of courage. You need to have a lot of grit and perseverance. You need to have belief, self-belief in yourself. And that is all I have to say about it. So hopefully through this podcast, you're going to see mistakes, and you're going to see how I approach them, and how I look at it, and how I think about it. And most importantly, you're going to see that I have faith, right? And some of you are going to look at it and think, well, what if? But of course, there's always a what if, right? What if this? What if that? And the truth of the matter is, you know, it's reminiscent of our world. You know, we are all scared. For example, I live in the United Kingdom, and we're about to exit the Union next year. And there were a lot of what ifs. People can't make any decisions anymore. I mean, the government is pretty much in fucking disarray. It is a terrible state of affairs, right? Excuse my French, guys, but it is a terrible state of affairs. So the bottom line is that we can't make a decision because we lack courage. Right, that's the truth of the matter. We're too worried about what the future would hold. It doesn't matter anymore. Decisions have been made. Let's just move ahead, right? I'm not a supporter of Brexit, but hey, what the hell? We're in this situation right now. And that's one of the things that you get in the military, for example, that you don't get in general civilian life, is that people don't accept that they're in the situation and they just got to find a way forward, right? So the bottom line is, trading is no different. You need courage, guys, and you need self-belief, and you need to have faith in yourself and in what you're doing. Awesome stuff. Now, with not much ado, I would like to move on to the rest of the podcast. So have fun, guys, and see you on this side. All right, guys. So I've started to record this actually quite late, but it's better late than never. So you can actually see that because I actually put this position on a couple of days. So that was what day were we? Wednesday. So I put this position on Monday. So I actually had to weather all this drawdown, by the way. And one of the crucial things you realize with the market profile is that the value highs are pretty solid. So I kind of wanted to sell because of the gap in value. So that was pretty much my whole thinking. And as you can see, if you've been following the podcast, I've done lots of gap trades, which is primarily 90% probability. So obviously, in the interest of making an income, I would rather do those trades than do trades that, for example, are 70% probability. For me, trading is a game of probability, so I tend to think about it in that context of probability. Whilst for some guys, obviously, it's not really about probability of success, it's about other things. And, each to his own, right? But if you follow me and you're learning from me, then probability is what makes trading what it is. It's it's the probability of you achieving a certain thing and will determine how you do it. It's like poker, you don't play every hand. I always say this. I say, in poker, do you play every hand? The answer from any good poker player is no, I don't play every hand. I play the hand that is worth playing. So ideally, I kind of sit in the same fence as those poker players. So in any case, right? So this is a trade for the week. Okay, so this has been featured right now, and we're going to follow this through into the end of the week. Now, what I'm expecting is a pretty big break, because it's quite late in the week. It's already Wednesday, so we only have really on Thursday and Friday to cover this gap. So this is a pretty deep gap. These are trades that normally I would like shorter gaps. So I might be prone to taking this profit a little early. But again, we'll see if we do the gap all in all. So I've got Euro CAD running. I also have dollar SEK running, right? So again, this one's slightly in the negative at the moment, but that's like I said, again, if for people who want to learn about how to manage risk and how we consider risk and what's the deal, I have a completely different idea. There's lots of content on the website. We have a document resources place which tells you some of the ideas, and you know what? Dig around, take a look. Make yourself comfortable, right? And you will learn a lot. If you come to us with an open mind, you will leave with a benefit. If you come with a closed mind, then you're going to leave with absolutely nothing, right? So, it's really a matter of fact kind of situation. So anyway, I'm long dollar SEK again for another gap trade. So we'll see how that goes. So, largely speaking, the importance of these gap trades, it's all about inefficiency, really. And what we've got to realize is just alongside efficient market hypothesis, right, is that markets are not efficient, right? They're not efficient, and they never have been. And that's the reason why we can trade them. If they were efficient markets all the time, then trading them will be quite difficult. And it is difficult when the markets are quite efficient to actually get a decent profit or to get a decent run. So we spend time as traders who are dedicated to trading market profile. We spend a lot of time looking at the gaps in value, right? Another thing I'm actually going to be talking about in future podcasts is the connection between Elliott wave theory and market profile, and how we can combine both Elliott wave theory and market profile to actually decipher and make incredible amounts of return and decipher the overall macro picture using both. It is one of the things that you don't see often. Most of the time, guys with profile are very statistical oriented, and guys with who work with Elliott are very macro oriented, and they're not really that, they're quite visual, right? So truth of the matter is that by combining the two, you have a very powerful idea. But going forward, guys, for future podcasts, we will discuss that. Meanwhile, we'll keep an eye on this trade as it goes. Any questions, just let me know. All right, guys, so following on from the previous clip, as you can see, we are slightly in the good for EuroCAD. We had a lot of movement, right? So overall, this is our sort of drawdown sort of territory. Now, one of the things that I'm going to say, obviously, is that, and this is a very good example of, some variance. Like, obviously, you guys have seen lots and lots of podcasts. Everything's going incredibly well. So this is one of those scenarios where, it's Thursday. I'm about to complete this podcast, and I haven't actually hit my target. So we actually did trade down very close, actually. So truth of the matter is that if I wasn't sitting at the tail end of this gap, well, there was a decent amount of profit in this, really. I think we were looking at, let's add this up, roughly about 80 or so pips in this. So this would have been actually very, very good. But on the other hand, we rebounded, and obviously we're trading very close to entry. So we've had a lot of movement. But one of the things that we do with the profile, and this is the beauty about it, it allows you to sort of filter the noise, right? So there was news from Canada. The Bank of Canada was going through one of those monetary policy things. So as a consequence, we had a lot of market movement, right? So this is kind of normal. However, with the profile, you stay a bit centered because you can actually see there's an inefficiency in the market and it's going to be covered. Now, one of the things that you can also see with the profile is what we call a TPO imbalance, right? So in this case, you can actually see that the TPOs are actually imbalanced, and that's the relationship of the upper deviation to the lower deviation. So we have a much stronger upper deviation, obviously, which is denoted by the point of control, which sort of divides the upper and lower end of the spectrum. So the upper deviation obviously is much more concentrated, and this is very typical of what we call a lot of initiating selling pressure, right? So if we're getting a lot of initiating selling pressure, then we can actually keep a positive mindset that actually, even if we end this week on a relative sort of low or in a bad position, in future weeks there's a much more of a potential for us to break and obviously trade much lower. In fact, when we do finally decline and we trade out this gap, we're probably going to trade into new value, right? Obviously, this is a constant sort of movement of the market wherein it tends to move from value to value. So in a nutshell, right, that is kind of an example of when things don't exactly go to plan. So one of the things as a trader you should do if things are not going to plan is to be brave, right? I always say this, right? It sounds very childish, but it is true. Most people are not brave, right? So be brave, right? So be brave, stick with it, and have faith in what you're doing. If you don't have faith in what you're doing, you might as well stop now, right? This is a law of nature. It cannot be violated. People who don't have faith in what they're doing should potentially just stop what they're doing, because in the long term, they are not going to find it beneficial, right? That's the bottom line. So going forward, guys, I hope that this message is well received. But in a nutshell, things don't always go to plan, and the best laid plan sometimes can absolutely go wrong, right? So just bear that in mind, right? So this is our situation with EuroCAD. I mean, dollar SEK, to be honest, is not any better. In fact, this is actually slightly down. So again, we are expecting at some point the gap to be filled, but obviously that hasn't happened. So I wanted to do this video because I kind of figured that, okay, here's a scenario where our gap trade is not really happening right this minute. And I know there will be a lot of people ask, what happens if it doesn't happen right now? And how do I deal with, the volatility thereof? Everyone's really obsessed about drawdown. To be perfectly honest with you, if your location is good, drawdown is not necessarily an issue, okay? But in a nutshell, I understand maybe a lot of people watching this have very little experience in markets. It's their first time, still hugely skeptical, still trying to decide what's what. I think the bottom line is that obviously this is one of the things that you're probably going to have to get your head around, that obviously you got to rewire the way you think about trading. Right, but in a nutshell, guys, awesome stuff. And for those of you who are probably hitting this podcast like as a first watch and you haven't really gone through the website, or maybe, I don't know, you find it a little bit confusing to find, it's not what you would see traditionally with trading websites where, they're quite, eager to sort of sell you the upside of things. Truth be told, we're quite focused here on market profiles, so it might look a little strange. So do browse around, specifically, obviously check out what we've got in terms of the client room transformation program. You can also have a look at some of our client room recaps, which is on this podcast page. So do take a browse around. And guys, if you have any questions or anything at all you want to say, don't hesitate to reach out. Awesome stuff.